Oh my gosh. Hello, my friends. I am doing something today that I haven't done in a very, very long time, and that is go live here. It's New Year's Eve, and I've been spending a lot of time with my kids and my family and not doing a lot of self-care for myself. So I'm like, oh, it's New Year's Eve. It's the perfect day to create a word of the year art journal layout. Now, I've typically done word of the year workshops previously using small pieces of cardstock, writing affirmations on them, doing things like this on retreat where we write notes and hide them, little affirmation cards, things that we want to feel, that I want to feel throughout the year. And they can be done on any size of paper or cardstock. So here are just a few that I've done previously. So today I wanted to just show you my process and show you live. So there'll be no pretty editing or anything. I'll try to talk about what I'm doing before or as I'm doing it, so you can follow along live or take notes and then do this on your own time. So normally I would have music playing, just some, things that comfort me close by. And I would typically start with a bit of a meditation. And questions I might ask myself throughout this meditation are things like, in the last 12 months, what did I struggle with? What went well? What do I wish I could have done differently? What would I like to see more of in my life? What would I like to experience less of in my life? And how do I feel right now? And what I'm going to do with that is I'm actually going to turn my book and I'm going to write out free form, so stream of consciousness writing. Okay, so this is going to be really loose, really messy, and just writing. I'm not going to worry about punctuation, spelling, nothing like that. Just free form, free flow, stream of consciousness writing. All right, so I feel like that's some of the stuff that I needed to get out. And now I'm going to put my book back to the right way and start thinking about what I want to focus on this year, how I want to feel towards this time in 2024. And what I really focus on is what I want to have more of, what I might like to manifest or just work towards having in my life. So now I'm going to write over top of all of this, same type of style, loosey-goosey, free form, stream of consciousness. I'm not sure if you noticed, but I didn't lift up my pencil at any point during that exercise. And that really just helps your brain just to keep moving. And sometimes if you feel stuck with the words, just keep making doodles, even if they're just little like doodles like this, like loop-de-loops. That's okay. It takes practice to get comfortable doing things like this when they feel so odd, maybe, for you. I just lost the look of my video. Where did you go? Okay. So these are the things that I want to focus on during the coming year. All right. So now if you've been in art journaling classes with me before, typically our next step would be to add gesso. But because we've done so much writing, I'm going to grab my handy dandy pile of scrap paper, and it can be anything. You can see these are some stamps postmarked from France, sparkly little torn pieces from birthday party tissue paper. I think this was maybe a Jane Davenport collage paper. What do we have here? Napkins. I'm a big fan of napkins. This is some of my own tissue paper stamps that I've made, just using the stamps that I have. I stamped them with black archival ink right onto tissue paper, and I've just made my own collage paper for pennies. This is the inside of a security envelope. So save your security envelopes for collaging. Again, this is another homemade piece of collage paper using stamps that I have collected over the years and archival ink. So when you add the matte medium, the ink doesn't smudge. These are coffee filters that I've taken some time to throw on some paint, or if I have extra paint at the end of a session, I put them onto things like this. Again, homemade stuff. Old dictionary sheets. So I just have a bunch of, again, this is tissue wrap from a gift. Old music sheets that I got for free. clarinet music from a garage sale. Okay, so you don't have to spend a lot of money to do this kind of stuff. It does take a little bit of time to collect it, and you don't need as much as you think you do. So just letting you see that, I'm going to have that off to the side. And then I have some matte medium, which is just like glue. Okay, so I'm going to grab my brush that I use for this, and I'm just going to start applying a little bit of matte medium, spreading it around. You can see I've added too much, but that's okay. And then just tear a piece, put it on, and then use that matte medium right over top. Okay. Now I like to work vertically, horizontally. I don't like to put angles on my collage. Some people don't mind it. When we're talking about art journaling, it's good to notice when you start to feel like your perfectionism is taking over. And I always joke that I'm a recovering perfectionist. But you still need to like-ish, sort of, what you're creating. So just try not to take this part too seriously. We are going to be covering everything up at some point. So these things can all be overlapped, and I recommend it so that it feels cohesive. Now, if you're using something like a tissue or a napkin, please separate it before you use it, and that will just allow some of that writing to come up from below, which is a kind of cool effect. And I also don't love having super straight edges. So I find, I mean sharp. I don't like having super sharp edges. So I find that I tear a lot of my paper so that there are no hard edges. And your paper, or if you have words on your papers, they do not need to go like we would normally read from left to right. You can put them up and down. You can put it upside down. It does not need to go in any particular order. And this isn't something that we need to spend a lot of time on this stage. We're just looking at covering up most of that background. I'm going to create a really interesting start. So if this was a video, I would definitely time-lapse this for you. So I do find it takes a long time. And you will see me going over my pages just to get the big glue globs off the matte medium. Okay. Where are we here now? When I come into using the dictionary, always check to see which words you've got on your dictionary there. I've got romance here, so maybe that needs to be part of my thinking for the next year. I'm going to put one up here too, so I've got it. There we go. We're just working from left to right, or from right to left if you're left-handed, trying to fill in your paper here, okay? There's no rhyme or reason to how large or how small you make your collage pieces. the larger your pieces, the less time it will take you. It's one of those things. Okay. Now, as I'm coming to the middle here, I'm going to deliberately choose to overlap this piece right in the middle. But in doing that, I'm going to make sure that I get that spot really tucked in well, just so it doesn't pop out once it's dry. Let's see. With the tissue paper, you have to be quite delicate, or you can tear it quite easily. But with some of the other paper, you can be quite heavy-handed. You don't have to treat it super gently. You can see I'm going over this stuff a few times just to help get those air bubbles out from underneath. The air bubbles just might impact your next layer in a way that you might not appreciate. So, you know, be mindful of that. What are we going to use next? Got this neato thing here. Put this France here. Now you can see that I am trying to repeat some of these papers, and that's just to give some consistency here to your next level. Let's break this up. She looks like a warrior. I wonder who she is. She's going to play a part in this. Gonna have to check that out. So I haven't thought of my word of the year yet, but I am still thinking about all of the stuff that I wrote down the second time. Trying to think of something that would suit me this year. Thinking about some of the challenges I've had this year, living with Crohn's disease. I do take medication on the regular, and some of my most effective medicine has been unavailable. So I've had to actually stop doing some of the things that I love. I haven't been able to teach yoga for the last, I don't know, several weeks, and that's been difficult for me. I miss my community there, and I miss having that freedom to just go to a class, because of my symptoms are being a little bit difficult to control. So freedom to live your life might just kind of play a part on me. Okay. Now I love the collage time. I'm not really thinking about what I'm doing. I am creating overlaps, and I'm not really being overly critical about what I'm putting and where I'm putting it. I'm just trying to find little spots. Oh, see, I left that one as a hard edge. That was just right off the envelope. Oh. And that's okay. I'll probably end up covering it up. And these are just personal preferences. There are no rules when you're doing this. This is for you. And it can be quite a beautiful process. And you can see over here that I've left some blank space, so you can see some of that really messy stream of conscious writing. Where did my music go? Here it is. I don't know what it is, but I love including music. I can't read sheet music, but it reminds me that most of the time we are trying to find the right pace for us or the right beat for our own lives, and we're often forced to just be in a state of overwhelm. Busy, busy, busy. I know I have definitely felt like I've been there at the busy place more often than I would like this year. Overwhelmingly busy, I would say. So as I'm doing this and I'm noticing those thoughts and feelings as they come up, just trying to find a little bit of compassion for myself. Knowing that life is not always easy in the moment, and we don't really know how we're going to find the strength or the energy to get through whatever it is that we feel like we need to get through, but more often than not, we do find that strength or the energy, and we're able to get through it, even though it wasn't easy. Okay. Oh, I feel like we're getting close to this. As much as I love collage, I also like being finished the collage. No. Oh, whoops. No big deal. I'm just going to put that little splotch of color. A little bit more of this. Whoops. And I've got lots and lots of matte medium here. Plop some of this beautiful stuff down. And I'm going to find that other stamp from France because I'm really quite enamored with her. And I think she's going to go right here. Now, once we get to this stage, we're going to let this dry. So I'm going to grab my dryer. You might want to turn down the volume. And right now I'm just trying to spread out all of this extra matte medium that I've got on here that I really don't need. I was overly heavy-handed with my supplies. So turn down your volume. It's actually not that loud. So I'm just spot checking, lifting my pages, making sure they're not sticking together. Making sure they still turn. All right, I bet you can see this looks rather chaotic, okay? So my page is also not quite dry, but I'm gonna come in with some gesso, and what gesso does, it does a couple of things. It's like a primer that you would put on your walls before painting, okay? So it'll help the next layer of acrylic paint go on just that much easier. So I'm starting out with just a little bit. And then I'm going to use my brayer. Okay, a brayer is a beautiful way. It's like a roller for painting. Okay, if you don't have a brayer, you can use a card. Any kind of card would do, and just start scraping it gently across your collaged paper, and you can already see that it's going to create this pushback of your collage layer. Now, I got a lot right here on my little French stamp, which I don't want. I want to keep my French stamp kind of open. So I'm just going to grab a baby wipe and just very gently remove the gesso right from there. Okay, so coming in with my brayer, because that's what I have and what I prefer to use on this stage, and just working this gesso all the way through the whole page. And again, if you go over something that you want to be clearer, just use your baby wipe to kind of move that gesso around, okay? Whoops. Remember, there are no mistakes in art journaling. Whatever comes out, comes out. But you can still do these little things like, no, I want that imagery. There's something about it that I quite like. So she's going to stay like that. And whenever I end up using this glittery tissue paper from the gift bags, I usually end up wiping some of the gesso off of that too. I really just love the little tiny polka dots in that one. And I would love to find some more of it because I feel like I'm almost out. You don't have to spend a lot of money to get into art journaling, okay? You can use your regular credit card to do this part. And we're just, oh, you can see here, this little tissue wasn't dry enough. So I'm just going to brush that off. No big deal. It will dry. Then to clean your brayer, if you choose to, just gently wiping it off with your baby wipe. Coming back to dry this. I know for those of you that have been in my art journal classes, you'll know that sometimes I encourage you to work a little faster. The collage layer is usually one of those layers where people get stuck thinking about what their next choice of paper is going to be, where they want to put it, did they cover up enough of their printing, things like that. Are the colors they're using, do they all match? What are they going to choose for their colors next? We get caught up in that, and it's just, in my experience, you can eliminate a lot of that second guessing by just going. Just do it. Go a little faster than maybe you even think you need to. Okay, now from this point, we do need to choose the colors, okay? Now, there is this thing called a color wheel. So if you really don't know how to choose a color, you can choose to do complementary colors, which would just fit this beautiful triangle. So in this case, it would be blue, violet, and yellow, orange. Okay, so you would use more of the blue and violet, and then little pops of yellow. And you can turn this so that you've got maybe your two favorite colors as your ones that you want to use the most. Or you can stick with your favorite colors and see how that works out for you, okay? Let me just get that stuck back there. Now, when I'm at this stage, I do like to keep my gesso handy. What am I feeling like today? All right. So I've got some turquoise and cerulean, which are very similar in color. The turquoise is a little darker, the cerulean is a little bit brighter. Royal fuchsia, it's like a nice bright pink, and a green. I don't know if I'm going to stick with the green. We'll see. But I definitely do want the turquoise. So from here, I just like to take little dots around. And from here, I do use my fingers, okay? If you're not comfortable doing that, you can use a brush, whatever works best for you. And I just kind of start smudging around. There was quite a lot there. There's not really any rhyme or reason to this. I am just coming up along the edge and just trying to wiggle my way in between some of these collage papers, still trying to have them being shown through. And I think that's too much paint, so I'm going to wipe some of that off. No big deal. And work at some of this. I don't know if I've got the whole page here. Again, you don't have to cover anything that you love. You'll notice I really tried to keep my French stamp lady open. And so some of this stuff I'm going to come back in with my baby wipe and just scumble it around a little bit, making small circles, not pressing overly hard, just to create a little bit more distress of moving that paint around just along the top so you can catch some of the interesting texture that we've got happening from our layer of collage. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to come in with my green, and this time I'm just going to add a dab onto my finger and work that into and around some of the color that I've already got, my cerulean blue. And this is just really organic. I don't have a plan. I'm just coming in and adding kisses of color around the blue. And this is, again, a thing that I've noticed I really struggled with in the beginning when I'm creating, I guess, a really abstract layout like this. There's no plan. I'm just kind of moving around, and I'm a Virgo, a little bit type A. I like to have things planned. So this was a big challenge for me when I started, and I would definitely get lost in the thinking about part. And I would think and think and think, and then I would second guess myself because I didn't like what I did. And that's all been part of my journey about learning just to let it happen. There is no right or wrong in this. And we do need to just start trusting ourselves. And it's okay if you create something and you end up not liking it. liking what we create here is a bonus. It's not a necessity. Okay. So you can still see through a lot of my layers. Okay. Now, we're going to continue to build upon this before we add our third color, the bright pink. I have this tickle trunk, if you will, of mark making materials. Okay, bubble wrap, toilet paper holders, string, Q-tips, coffee cups, cups within cups. I've got kids, so I found these at-home dry or freeze your wart off things, and they make really interesting shapes on paper. I don't even know what this is from. It's a little circular cylindrical tube. Makes great little circles on your paper. What do I have? Skewers in here. Just lots of interesting things. So we're going to use this to make some marks right now on our page. And we're going to use the same two colors. So we're going to use the green and the blue, but I seem to have misplaced my palette. Haha, here it is. The joys of Christmas vacation. My daughter's been doing a lot of self-directed art projects, which I love, not complaining. And I'm just going to add a little bit of these colors and some more white. So a little bit of gesso here. So we can come in and do stuff like this and just get paint around the whole edge of the cup and then find a spot and make some marks. Okay. I am partial to doing things like this in threes or singles, odds or singles, and at least 3 times somewhere on your page. Just the rules of 3. Right there. And then, of course, you can have some randoms, have them half coming off the page. Okay, and we're just making some marks here. These are really organic. They don't require you to have any artistic ability in any way. So, coming in with this weird thing and just making a few dots. If you have dotting tools, you can use those at this stage. Typically, the smaller the mark, the more that I'll make. Okay. I'm just trying to go wherever you think you might need a bit of lightening. Okay. Probably should have done this one last because they're going to take a bit longer to dry. But you can see like I'm not really taking a lot of care in how they're being placed. I'm working quickly, trying not to let my inner critic tell me I'm not doing a good job or to stop me in any way from making these marks. Okay, our inner critic does tend to dictate a lot of what we do or don't do because we're afraid of failing or making a mistake. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about art journaling is there are no mistakes. You're just learning. Happy little accidents. So on to the next thing. Okay, I'm going to use just a small piece of bubble wrap, smudge out that green, and then gently press this on to the bubble wrap, and then come in and make a few marks. Okay, where you go is totally up to you. I do like to overlap between marks that I make. So I'm trying to make sure that I do get some in the circles that I've made already. And you'll notice that my paint is all still wet, so I'm still trying to be careful about how I'm placing this. I don't necessarily want to smudge everything, but I do want to make sure that I have overlapping elements on this layer, okay? Now, you can choose. Maybe I want to come in with some of that dark blue, just a few, and add a couple of these, maybe specifically over the green spots. This paint is already drying a bit for me, but we'll make it work. Of course, you can always add a bit more paint. And at this stage, because I am going to have to dry again right away, I am feeling called to add a little bit of white splatter. So I've got a fan brush here. I'm just adding a little bit of water to it. Wait. And then very carefully tapping at this stage to get some white splatter happening on the background here. I will probably do this again with black. Oh, my husband's gonna kill me. I'm getting paint splatter on my laptop. So hang tight. I'm just gonna take some of that off. Okay. So I didn't use my paper towel roll, which I do want to do, but first we're going to dry this. And you can see this hasn't taken me very long, actually. Like, we've been live for 42 minutes. And at this point, I could almost say that I'm ready to actually start thinking about what my word is. The colors that are on here right now are leaving me feel pretty hopeful, actually. Sometimes the colors that I choose when I'm working for this are quite dark. And that just depends on my mood. But I keep coming back to the word freedom, partly because my freedom has been quite limited this year from lack of medication, and it's been restricting, it's just been impacting the decisions that I can make with what I do, where I go, how far I venture away from my home. And that does leave me feeling quite frustrated, disappointed in myself, in the facility that manufactures my medication, in the system. Like, I don't understand. This particular medication works so well for me. I want it because it allows me to live my life like a normal person. And when you're living with any chronic illness, you know, you may often feel like you don't belong, that you're somehow other. And I lived there for a very long time. I've been dealing with this sense of other since 1996. And it's exhausting. And I was finally in a place where I wasn't feeling so separate. And then my medication stopped being produced. And now I'm back there. So, you know, my word might come back to freedom, but maybe not in the traditional sense that people might think of freedom. And that's an interesting point to make. When you're choosing your word of the year, it's not necessarily the dictionary definition. It's the definition as it means to you. Okay? Okay, we're not quite dry here, but this does leave me I'm feeling very hopeful when I look at this. Very hopeful, which is really good. It's a good place for me to be. Okay, back to my palette, which is just a dollar store plate. Acrylic paint is really great to just wash off after. Okay. Now you'll notice that I'm using just a tiny amount of paint most of the times, right? It's one of the biggest things that I started out struggling with again when I started art journaling, was just putting way too much paint on my palette. And that will come based on your experience. Okay. So I'm just going to use the pointy end of my paintbrush here to spread this out rather than my fingertip. I'm going to come back in. Oh, which end do I need to use? This end. I'm just dabbing this all around, loading it up with some paint. And again, we're going to try to overlap with some of our marks that are already on this page. Okay. You notice that I'm getting 3 stamps from this, which is fabulous. Sometimes we don't get that many. But it is nice when we do. Whoop. Sorry, I'm not moving my arm off so you can see what I'm doing. Put one up down there. Maybe one up here, another one there. I personally love it when things come off the page, so I always try to make sure that I'm incorporating some of that. And we need some over here in the middle. Kind of missing out on stuff here. Okay, so we've added a little bit more pink to some of our colors that we were using. And now I'm going to give this just another quick dry. So as you're doing this, if you're taking notes, write down the steps that you think you might struggle with. So you know what, I am also a recovering perfectionist, or maybe you're not even recovering yet. Maybe you're still in full-on perfectionist mode, and that's okay if you are. Just recognize it. I was there for a long time. I would say, after I started art journaling, I was probably still in perfectionist mode for about 2 years. And then I started to become a recovering perfectionist. So just noticing what you're feeling and why you're feeling something is a win. Okay. Now I'm going to move into my black archival ink here. I'm just going to start edging around my page. This is one thing that I love to do. It just helps frame my page, and you can come in as far on the edges as you want. Just gives it a bit of a distress, a bit of a grunge effect. And not everybody likes the grunge effect. I love it because I feel like that's my life. Nobody is perfect and clean edged, so I try to recreate that stuff in my journal to varying degrees. And you can come in, like I said, as far or make this as distressed as you wish. Just kind of helps frame the page. And then I also like to add a little bit of script stamps. So same thing, I'm just going to take my pad and my hand, give that a few pads there, but then I don't like to ever stamp that directly onto my page first. So I have some scrap paper with me always, and let's see if I have a page here. This is from when I use way too much paint. I put it on an old accounting ledger, and now I'm creating my own collage paper while I go. And now I'm just going to randomly stamp a few of these. Okay, so I got quite a few, 4 stamps out of that, coming back to stamp that first heavy ink off, and then back up to my art journal page. And I can see that I'm still getting a little bit of coverage. It's not a whole lot by the time I get down there. So back to here, stamp off the big heavy stamp, and then back to the page. And again, making sure to go over some of your existing marks. Okay, and it's just to create interest, a little bit of texture. Off the page, off the side, okay? And that, now I'm done. I'm done with that, okay? So from here, now I want to figure out my word, okay? I need my word, which I think is going to be freedom this year, and how I want to create a focal point on this image, okay? So that just requires a little bit of thought, a little bit of turning inwards for me. If you have word stamps, you're welcome to use like letter stamps. You can use those. Let's see. So if you're a parent, I've got this old Melissa and Doug set from my daughter. Which I sometimes use, but I don't know if I have all the letters. And then I have some old Stampin' Up! Letters that have the uppercase and the lowercase on one stamp, which is kind of nice. Now we're starting to get into the art supplies that cost a little bit more money. These are, they're all going to fall off. Tim Holtz foam cling stamps. Where did they go? Is that the only one that fell? So you can stamp this stuff if you are in that stage where you don't love your own printing or your own handwriting, and there's nothing wrong with that, okay? What am I feeling called to do? I think right here is going to be where I put a little bit of gesso or white acrylic paint. Okay, I'm not using a brush. I want this to be a little bit feathered, but I do want it to be a little bit more opaque. Okay, so I'm just going to create a little white spot here. So I still can see below because gesso is as opaque as you want it to be. You can keep spreading it around. Again, if you're happier to do a brush rather than your finger, you're welcome to do that. I find I'm heavy-handed if I use a brush. And I feel like I can get a better, for this particular effect, I can do this better with my hands than with my brush. So now I'm going to dry this. All right. And I am going to choose to use these stamps today. So I've just got my black archival ink and a block. I'm going to try to find a smaller one. And here we go. So I'm not taking time to draw a straight line. I might try to get an actual straight letter. But this is something before that I could never have done, like putting the words on, getting all of the letter stamps equally spaced on a straight line. Seriously gave me anxiety. So now I just try not to worry about it. I'll purposely make sure that they're not aligned because it helps relieve my recovering perfectionism. Totally. F-R-E-E-D-O-M. F. Great. Got it. R. So this has been just about an hour, and we've got a fully completed Word of the Year art journal layout. Now, again, when I started art journaling, this would not have taken me an hour. This probably would have been a multi-session, multi-hour activity because I would be second-guessing every single thing I did. A, B, C, D, freedom. And when you're using individual letters, the D's and the B's and the P's and the Q's, like these, all look the same. And it's kind of hard on your brain to make sure that you're using the right one. Anyway, I get really distracted talking to the internet. Oh. And M. Whew. Freedom. Okay. So now from here, I would say this is almost done. I'll do a little bit of black splatter, and I will come out here and probably go over top of the ink. I don't know if you can see, but it's not a super good, I didn't get a super good stamp there. There's a lot of, oh, maybe it's okay. It looks like a lot of disturbance from not getting a good enough stamp. But just to demonstrate how amazing black ink splatter looks, I'll do that before I end the video. If I can find a black paint. Bum, bum, bum. Here we go. So just the tiniest amount of black paint. That is smaller than my pinky fingernail. Okay. Adding some clean water and just mixing that together. Okay, it's going to look really soupy, really juicy. And then, so I can maybe avoid splattering my laptop, I'm going to try to go this way. And just adding a little bit of interest with the black splatter. Okay, and I do like big splatters, but splatter doesn't always do what you want it to. Okay, so I think I'm done. I've got my word of the year in my art journal, so I'll remember it. If you have sparkly things, glittery things, you can certainly come in and add more marks to it. But you can see I didn't use very much. I didn't use very many expensive supplies. I used 4 paint colors plus gesso, matte medium as my adhesive, and a bunch of scrap paper. I did use a brayer and a fan brush for splatter. Stamps and ink. Otherwise, it was pretty much stuff that you could find in your recycling container. So do please start gathering your tools that you can use to make organic marks. Again, I used a toilet paper holder, a disposable cup, and one of those little freeze your wart off things. Clean, not used. And you can see that you can still see all the layers through here. You can see the collage paper. You can see my stamps that I had. You can see some of the dictionary words, and you kind of see the layers all coming through to the top. And that is sometimes one of the most difficult things to do. So thanks for joining me today, and I hope to see what you create. It doesn't have to be in an art journal. You can do the same process on any size of paper. Yeah, if you decide to follow along and do a word of the year, post it in the comments and let me see what you create. Happy New Year!